This now, joining us in the studio is Nina Schick. She's a policy analyst with Open Europe, a non-partisan think tank here in London. Non-partisan, you're not going to tell us whether you think the UK should stay in or out. But let's talk about the issues, because David Cameron certainly does think that the UK should stay within the EU. What do you think are the issues that he's going to push over the next few months? Do you think it's going to be economy, diplomacy, security? What do you think?
Very interesting to see how the tenor of what Cameron is saying has changed. Of course, for the past few months, he's been involved in negotiations with these EU leaders, and it's all been very technical. We're going over the minutiae of the deal. And as soon as that deal was confirmed, we saw in Brussels last night and again today, it's going to be a mixture of all the things you just mentioned. It's going to be about economic prosperity. It's going to be about the security of Britain in a stronger EU. And also, it's going to be about British identity. Where do they see themselves in the world? So Cameron is speaking very differently now. The deal has been done, and he's coming out in favour of Remain. The campaign has started.
It definitely has. We're not going to hear about much else, I think, for the next few months here in the UK. But it's been quite shocking, actually, how so many people don't actually know many of the issues. How do you think the Prime Minister is going to manage, if he's going to manage, to engage people? Or does this simply become a referendum about patriotism, in a sense?
I think the referendum obviously isn't going to be about the minutiae and the deal. If you're an analyst like I am and you look at what's in the deal, there are some things there that are quite important for the UK, specifically on the issue of economic governance. And this is to do with structural reform of the EU. How does the relationship between the Eurozone countries and the non-Eurozone countries work? Now, this is, of course, in Britain's strategic interest in the long term to have some safeguards in that area. But again, coming back to the campaign, I think it's going to be about Cameron saying he secured special concessions, secured Britain's status and the fact that they don't have to join in to ever closer union. It's the first time any EU country's got an opt-out on this. They don't have to join the euro, and they still get to see, as we heard him saying, we get all the good bits. We have the best of both worlds. This is the argument he's going to make.
I mean, the British were always sort of the union's lovable Eurosceptics. They were always the ones that would always stand a little bit away. They're not part of the euro, for example. Since the Eurozone crisis started, a lot of, especially the southern EU countries, also have very strong anti-EU sentiments. So especially at this moment in time, how risky do you think it is that if the UK does leave, it does then lead to the breakup of the whole of the EU?
Well, one could see the entire British reform agenda actually as a form of whistleblowing almost, because the Brits were the first to put up their hands and say, look, something isn't working in the structure of the EU and we want to change the way things are done. And a lot of things on the agenda are valid. The fact that the EU is declining in terms of competitiveness vis-à-vis the rest of the world. Something needs to change. And these are issues that a lot of other European leaders, they might not stand up and say in public, but in secret, private, they were telling Cameron, we agree with you. Thank you for doing these changes. And interestingly, some European leaders have now come out and said, well, this thing that Cameron got in his deal, we want to adopt it as well. Yeah. But if the UK were to leave, of course, that's a symbolic blow for the EU, because in a club where people have always wanted to join, someone leaves. And of course, those parties who want to leave the EU from other European countries would see that as a way to follow suit.
And of course, such a key, strong country as well to leave. Well, Nina Schick, we'll be talking about it many, many times, I'm sure. From Open Europe, Nina, thank you.
Thank you.